What's up, guys? Last time we made a tic-tac-toe game by starting with a Connect 4 game and then changing a few functions, getting rid of a few, and more than you might think, keeping some without any change at all. Let's run it to see where we left off. We have this label of a number for each spot, so if I want the top left, I don't need to input row and column separately. I can just say 1, and if I want the next one, I can say 2. Let's give X a win so we can test our win and test our diagonal. So if we go 5 in the middle and then maybe 8 on the bottom for O, 9 should give X a win. And that's great. But last time I did mention that there was one part of our code that I really didn't like and I really wanted to go back and change. So let's do that now. I like the idea of getting a single input from the user. When they make one move, they hit one button, and they don't have to think about rows and columns. They don't have to think about two-dimension. Okay, what if I put a row and I put a column, but the combo doesn't work, and then the game asks me again? Does it ask me just one of those, or does it ask both and start over? I would hate that as a user, and I would hate that as the person who had to write the code as well. So I like the idea of asking for a single input and then transforming it behind the scenes into this row column form that we need. But the way we did it yesterday was really ugly. We turn it into an integer, and then we use the div mod function, which is basically making change. You get chunks of 3 and then how much left over to see how far you go down in chunks of 3 and then how much you go to the right. But oops, we had this problem where we have to minus 1 because we start at 1 instead of 0, and then we had to change the range. And then, worst of all, we had to do it again in the main function because the validate was just seeing if it would work, but it wasn't actually doing it permanently. And that's a big issue because somebody who sees this isn't going to know what that means, and somebody who wants to change it, maybe we decide to change the way we did input, well, they're going to have to change this one here and then go back and change this one here, but not the same way. That would be a nightmare. So what have we done for all the other jobs in the program? We gave them a function. That would help with this too. We take this job, this idea of converting from a single number to the two-dimensional thing, and we give it a function. Then we can call it in here, or we can call it down there, and we can give it a name, and if we ever want to change it, we change it in one place instead of multiple. So let's do that. Let's say def, okay, what do we want to call this? We've got a number, and we're turning it into row and column. I think the mathematical term, I was looking it up earlier, like what does that do if you go to a higher dimension? The mathematical term is unfold, okay? So if we go from 1 dimension to 2, they would say unfold. And the thing we're doing now is not exactly that, but I do like that name. We could also call it expand because it's going from 1 to 2, or we could call it convert because even though that doesn't tell you what's happening, it tells you that something's being converted to another, and that's pretty good to know. But I feel like calling it unfold right now, and that's what I like. If you decide on another name, or if we look up a better math term later, that's great. Unfold, and then it takes a move, I guess. That's a question. Is it getting a string or is it getting an integer? Well, the thing we did down here was multi-step. It was taking the int, it was -1, it was div mod 3. Maybe we can do all of that in one. I don't know. Let's think about it. We could say that, and then return row and column. And then over here, we can say we don't need this outside of the try. We can put it in there. Is that good? Let's see. Might have to do that again. And then might have to do that. Okay, let's test that. I'm not sure if that works, and I'm not sure if that's the best way to organize it, but if you change a lot of things without testing, you're going to be really lost. So let's hit run, and we might get some information by an error message telling us something, or a wrong output telling us something. Then we'll know instead of just messing around and hoping. We can guess. So let's say I'm going to try some good inputs first, see if they work, and then I'll try some bad ones and see if they correctly don't work in the way we expect. Uh-oh. So that, when I tried to do the same sequence earlier and have 8 for the O and 9 for the X, it's not getting it. So what's the problem? Well, I don't know, but I know where to look because the function has a name now. So I can look inside that function, see if it's doing the right thing. Yes, this is doing the right thing, which means the validate is rejecting it too early, or too eagerly. And I think it has to do with this thing. Let's see. Yeah, okay. That fixes it, but not really, because again, this is pretty strange and confusing and long and ugly, and I hope we can get it out of here. What if you put some bad inputs? What if I put hello? Well, it asks again. What if I put a number that is a number, but it's outside of the range, like 10, or -1, or 1.4567? Okay, so it is asking again, which is correct. What about the most common error of all when you're getting input? The blank, right? If I try to download something or look up something in a database or ask the user to type something, the most common error is what if you just get nothing? So that's cool, but is it gonna go back on track, right? When we're asking again, is it gonna go back on track and fix with a right answer? So if I put 3, okay, it really did escape that loop and go back into something good. So that's okay. I'm not thrilled with this. Let's see. Maybe we could check the row and column separately and see if they're in range 3, I guess. Or maybe we could do the check before we convert. See, that's where it gets tricky. I really want to express a clear idea, do it once, and do it in a way that doesn't repeat itself. But you can't always do that. When you're writing code, you keep trying to zoom in and zoom out and figure out the way that makes sense. And you end up stepping on your toes sometimes. For example, this row column thing, I don't really need this. I could just say return and get rid of that line, which makes it shorter and less repetitive. But maybe having the row column is like a comment. It tells you, hey, this is what you're getting. You're getting a thing called row and column. So maybe we could add a comment just like we did on the other functions. I could say converts one single number input to 2-dimensional coordinates, maybe we could say, which is definitely important. We had a thing recently where I told you guys to look up tutorials if you see somebody else making tic-tac-toe in Python. By the way, I just searched again, and there are new ones. If I told you to search last week and you search again now, there are new people posting Python tutorials every day because it's such a common project to do tic-tac-toe. And they all have this problem. Like everybody has the problem of, well, I would like to get the user input in one thing. 2 would work, but it sucks. and I would like to keep my board in 2 coordinates. 1 would work, but it sucks. And so you either have one of them ugly or you have a transition that's ugly. And so we've decided to make the transition ugly. It's not the worst thing in the world, it's just 1 line of code, but still converting, minus, making row and column. It is quite a bit to do all at once, and there is a chance that I've made a mistake and it'll fall apart in some rare scenario. So that's it for now. I do like this step, and I do think we're not quite done without it, but whenever you write a program, you have these issues of design, of, okay, we see an ugly part of our code, how can we make it limited and not just infecting everything with duplicating the bad stuff over and over. It gets worse than this, but this was a good example.